We're on like Donkey Kong.
What?
We're on like Donkey Kong. Alright, what are we doing today? Back in the shed. We're working on the truck finally. Feels like it's been a while. What are we doing?
We're making, what are we making again?
Well, we bought some cardboard, so I think we're going to make a template of the firewall. To start off with, we've got to do a bit of cutting to make space for the firewall.
Here's the cardboard.
This is a roll of RAM board. This stuff's bloody expensive, but it's actually really thick.
It looks useful though.
So it should hold the shape quite well. And we'll start making a template with it. I've put this bit of box section here. The back of this box section is going to be the firewall. So that sets the gap between the engine and the firewall. And I'm going to use this to make my template off and build off. But to start, I'll get some trimming done. So what I'm going to do is trim in this area here. And the firewall is going to end up coming out to here. So we're going to do the front panel or the front firewall panel as one piece, and then we'll add to it the side pieces to fully seal it in. I feel like this might be the best option to start off with, so I can start mounting the pedals and stuff to get a feel for everything, and I can start adding the floorboard to attach to the firewall. So if this is the right choice or not, I don't know, but that's what I'm doing. So I'm going to do some trimming now, and I'll bring you back in to do the firewall.
Nothing can
template.
be wrong.
All I'm saying.
I've trimmed out the area around the guard mount here. So what I'm going to do now is measure it up, put this back in place, and then start making a template of the firewall. I'm going to use some magnets and stuff to hold it in place, so I can temporarily hold them there while I cut the template out. And we'll leave a little bit of extra material on there that we can trim off later.
What are we doing now?
We're going to do the cardboard once I clamp this back on. Excuse me, ma'am. Can you go over there and hold the tape measure with me?
Where?
On the other side?
Can I have the tape measure?
No, you hold this end against there. And all the way to the end of this. No, here.
That is. I've literally hooked it on, but I'm still holding it.
Okay.
You literally could have just hooked it on.
So let's cut the cardboard at $13.90. Can you remember that?
Can you lock it then? Just lock it.
Just remember it.
The wasp is behind you, but I'm not freaking out.
Have you got a pencil? So I know some of you are thinking, oh, why didn't you measure the bottom and the top and then cut it? There's nothing to say that that edge is actually square. So that's why I didn't measure off there. I've squared it off the edge that I do know is straight. And then I'll double check that now and make sure they're both square. Not that it needs to be square because it's all going to get trimmed in the truck anyways. So I'll do that, and then I'll mark the center, and that will give us a basis to start. Make sense? You know, when I finish this, you're going to have to build your own truck. So.
No. You can build me one. I'm not building it. Did you cut that?
Yes.
Doesn't look cut.
No, I didn't do a good job, did I? So I need to put a bend or a fold right here in the cardboard. I'm going to measure from the center. So I've marked the center of these two guard brackets on this box section. I'm going to measure from the center out, and that'll be the measurement I need for the fold. And then I'll do the fold in the cardboard on both sides. So I need 670 is the measurement. I'm going to use this little press brake that I've got. It should give me a nice clean, crisp fold line. So everything that I'm doing at the moment is trying to establish what I'm going to do with the actual sheet metal. So it should make things a lot easier. I'll have all the measurements I need, all the fold lines, like everything that we need is going to be on this cardboard. And the reason I'm doing it with this is it gives me a nice, clean, crisp bend like you would on sheet metal. So I can kind of get a really good idea of how things are going to look when it's all said and done. So that's our folds done. Now I can stick it back on the truck and have a look. So I've got this center mark, and I've marked the center as I was saying earlier on the box section. So now I've got like a reference mark that I can use all the time. So I'll put this in here. I've also marked how much above this box section I want to be. That measurement, I just made it up. So this one I went 40 mil, gives me a bit of excess material. I've just made it up. I'd rather have excess material than not enough. So now we've got that perfect crisp fold line. I can use some magnets to hold it in place. And you can kind of get an idea of what I'm trying to accomplish here. So I've got the press lines where I want them. That's going to make a good template for when I do the sheet metal. So what I've got to do now, I've got it magnetized or held in with magnets along the box section here. The plan is I'm going to eventually put a fold, a 20mm lip facing this way towards the rear of the cab, and I'm essentially going to make a shelf in the engine bay. So you've got to remember this is the engine bay. The reason is I want to be able to mount accessories. I don't have much room in the engine bay, and if I do an engine conversion, I'm going to need that space for accessories such as catch can, coil pack, fuel reg, whatever. This space here, if I was to go straight up and come to the firewall or the truck, the cab, I'd end up with a huge amount of space in the cab behind the dash, which I don't think I necessarily need. I'm not running the big heater core out of the D22 or any of that. I've decided I'm just going to go the smaller slimline stuff if I ever need to put a heater core in it. You can buy like hot rod units and stuff like that that are very compact. So I'm just going to do that. And I'd rather have a bit of extra space in the engine bay than have it in the cab up behind the dash. It's wasted space having all that space behind the dash if I don't need to put anything in there. Hopefully it doesn't bite me. So what I'm going to do now is mark the center of the transmission. And then I think I'm going to use like a wheel or something to get a rough idea of where the transmission tunnel needs to be. I've got the rough cut done. So what I can do now is start to slowly open up that cut around the transmission. So obviously I don't need to take any more out of there. If anything, I can probably add a little bit. But I'll see how it looks when it's flat. So I think what we need to do now is probably just take it up around here a little bit. So what I'm trying to do is get this panel to lay flat. So from the top of it to here, it needs to be flat. And then what I was thinking with the lower section is I can put a fold, probably, I don't know, 100 mil up to clear. And then that fold will line up with the floor pan. So I'll have the floor come up and meet up with this. So you don't need to trim anymore here if you're going to have the floor meet up with it. If that makes any sense. I've got my cardboard trimmed out. So what I'm going to start doing now is doing my layout. I'll use, I think I said I've got my cardboard cut out. I've got my sheet metal cut out. I'm going to lay it down flat. I'm going to mark out where all my cut lines are, my bend lines, do some bending. And then I can do the final trim for the transmission tunnel area. I'll use my magnets to hold it in place. So what I'll do is I'll use my square to project the line across here and throw my pen across off the shed. So I've managed to mark out all my cut lines and my folding lines. I'm going to fold this up. Then I can trim out the area in the transmission tunnel. I ended up making it symmetrical. It was really bothering me not having symmetrical. So it is what it is. If we lose a bit of space, whatever. And it should make it easier to make the transmission tunnel. One thing I'll note is I've put a relief cut in here. You'll see why I've done that later. So I'm about to load it up in the homemade pan brake and we'll see how we go. Yeah. Well, this is the bend profile I was going for. So what I'm going to do now is put this in the small folder and fold the flanges up, or the edges, and then I'll trim this area out. So I'll probably just quickly cut that with the grinder and then do the final trim with some tin snips. So what I'm doing now is just doing the final trim. Tin snips don't like to cut big panels, they like to cut little curly pig's tails, we call them. The best way to do that is cut the bulky material out and then you just have a little pigtail and you'll see it curls up as you trim. So this is 1.2 mil cold rolled steel. That's why it doesn't have mill scale on it. I bought this sheet to do rust repairs on the cab because the cab's all 1.2 mil. So it'll make a good firewall. I think for the floor pan and stuff like that, I'm going to use 1mm cold roll. Easier to work with, and I've got a pretty heavy duty structure, so I don't need the material thickness. So I'll use this for the firewall and some of the areas that need a thicker material, but for the most part I'll probably just get a sheet of 1mm. So I'm going to go ahead and do the final trim around here, and then I'll bring you back in when we do the folding. To bend this flange over, I couldn't put it in the bender, so I put a bit of RHS there and tipped it with the hammer. You just clamp whatever you have in there and tap it over with the hammer to get the bend. I also done the same to straighten up this edge here because my bender was getting warped and I didn't get an even bend. I've bent a lot of sheet metal like this. Just clamp it, lots of clamps, and tap it over with a hammer. I'm going to throw it in the truck and show you what it looks like. Okay, I've got the firewall all pressed up, marked out, pressed up, put in place. It's temporarily clamped in place on that bar that I was using. What I've got to do now is create the floor and clearance it for the wheels. That's not happening today. I've got the basic structure done, so later down the track I'm going to weld on a bit of flat bar here across the whole thing and have a removable tunnel. I need to have a removable tunnel because, as you can see, if I put sheet metal straight over here for the transmission tunnel, I won't be able to get these bolts out. The reason I done it is I want as much room in the cab as possible. So I'm going to make the transmission tunnel removable. Probably just the front portion. The rear portion will be fixed and welded in place, and I'll just do the front removable. So I can, if I have to remove a transmission, I can undo the cover, pull the bell housing bolts out, and we can drop the transmission. It's a real battle trying to keep as much space in the cab and leave as much space outside for the transmission and engine. I'm just doing what I think is going to work best, and that's it for today. So I'm happy with the progress. In the next video we'll probably start making brackets for our seating, and we'll start adding some floor sheets. Thanks for watching.